Hello, 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 everybody. I'm so excited to be with you today. I know I've been kind of dragging the last couple of days, got a lot of family things to deal with, a home going, and some other issues with different family members here and there and everywhere. And it's just a lot, but I'm excited to be able to be with you all today. I'm explaining all that because I've been definitely feeling it in my physical body. There's a book I'm working through called The Body Keeps the Score. And one of the things that it talks about is how if we don't deal with trauma, it can seep deeply in our body and surface later as medical conditions. And I'm not even thinking about the long term trauma. I'm just thinking about the last couple of weeks and how I already feel it. I mean, I literally was trying to train my new intern yesterday and I would hover in mid click and fall asleep. I said, "Okay, we're not messing around anymore. I'm getting all the sleep." So today is our fireside chat and I just realized I forgot to go and check if we had any new questions come in. I did have some questions that were submitted. Let me pull up that spreadsheet so that I can answer those for you tonight. If you've got a money question, it can be any money question about business, about your personal finance, about sending kids to college, about how to make more money at work, how to be more valuable at work, all those kinds of things. That's what this space is for. And some of you may have seen earlier some of you may have seen earlier, I was yesterday, me and my new intern, who happens to be dating my son, we did a test run of the studio, and we definitely found out some things were not working the way I wanted them to work. For one, it sounded like it was studio sound instead of the mic. So we're going to work on that. We're going to refine that. It's probably user error. Like I probably did something wrong. It's probably not the equipment, but also I just want to make sure before I start inviting people in that we work all the kinks out. So that's the news for me. Other news that's going on, we're going to be restarting the podcast soon. Many of you know we had a branding change, and with that branding change we decided to put a pause, a strategic pause on a lot of the activities that I was doing. This is going around in circles, so I hope y'all can at least see me, because the computer is not responding to my attempts to pull up the spreadsheet. So I think what I might just do, hopefully you can see me and hear me okay. If you can, let me know. If you can't hear me, you won't be able to let me know. But if you can't see me well, let me know. Or if my audio is choppy, let me know. Okay. Because we took most of the equipment back to the new studio. So I'm just using my home setup here. What I might just do is go ahead and answer some of the most commonly asked questions. But if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat. And so let me think. I know I did have a question about insurance. Somebody asked me about insurance because there was a thing that I said either last week or the week before, how I'm not a big fan of whole life insurance policies for most people's situation, but there are some situations where I think a non-term, like a whole life or a variable life or some of these other universal life, so these other products might be applicable. And and I admit I admit I may not have been the nicest in some of my comments on that. It might have been during the Juneteenth thing. I don't remember. I will admit I may not have been the nicest in some of my comments because I honestly find that most of the people who are selling the high-end insurance products, that they're selling it as a wealth building vehicle for the lower classes to ascend to higher classes. But the only person ascending to a higher class from the use of those products, in my experience, and your mileage may vary, is somebody who sells those products. So if you are somebody who didn't sell those products, does not have a family member who sells those products, and you would like to give me some examples in your life of how those products have helped elevate you, I'm certainly open to hear it. But for most of the people that come to me, they have a net worth of 2 million or less. They really don't need anything beyond term insurance for their family situations. And the reason I say that is because there's two situations where I highly recommend you consider those kinds of products. One is when you have a very high net worth, because if you're worth, if you're worth 20, 25, 35 million dollars, and you come to me with, well, not me, because I'm not licensed to take your money, but you come to somebody I recommend with $1 million, they can take an insurance product and turn that $1 million to 7 million just like that. You're gonna have to pay a few extra penalties and taxes and things like that that other people wouldn't pay, but boom, you just converted that money. And I am also cognizant of the fact that as we get older, it's hard to get term insurance. In fact, I have a policy that's $750,000, and it was a 30-year policy that I took out for my oldest to get him through college. If something happens to me before he finishes college, that money is there to help him get a good footing. Well, when the second miracle baby came along 10 years later, I went to try and get insurance, and y'all, it was like $1,000 a month at first. And then COVID happened and the rates dropped. And I was like, jump on that. And I ended up getting a 20-year policy that should carry him through college by the time I got it. I think he was already 4 or 5 or 6 years old. And at that time, the product that I have for my oldest is $300 a year. The product that I have for my youngest is $70 a month. And that is with some significant health challenges. But I mean, originally, when I tried to do that and it was like $1,000 a month, I was like, well, before I pay $1,000 a month for insurance, I'm gonna invest $1,000 a month. And if you've ever done some calculations, you don't have to take my word for it. Go into Google, look up retirement calculator, look at what it would happen if you put $1,000 a month into the market, say in your self-directed IRA, where the money is tax-free if used for retirement purposes, or the money can grow tax-free for your heirs, right? If you put that in there and you chart out what happens when you put $1,000 a month in for 20 years, you're gonna realize you don't need to pay $1,000 a month for 20 years. Now, I will say that's a little bit artificial, because if something happens to me, my husband will take care of the little one. All right. But if you are a struggling single mom, if you are a struggling single dad, the last thing I want you to do is to be spending $500 a month on a $200,000 insurance policy. You could take that $500 a month and you could save that every month for a year, and your children will have enough money to bury you. Now, it won't be the most fancy thing. You probably need a couple years for that, but they'll have enough to bury you. And if you have more money, you can set more aside and they'll have enough to bury you. Okay. And so I don't really like, I don't know why I keep talking about that. Maybe because my auntie's funeral, her visitation is tomorrow and the homegoing is soon. And I remember what it was like when my father passed away. He didn't have enough money or insurance or any other products to cover his burial, right? And you say, well, what about if I have younger kids? This is why I feel like it's very essential to get that term policy, because you want to have some kind of coverage. All right. But the reality is, if you're spending $500 on one of those bigger products, chances are your equivalent cost for that equivalent amount of insurance on a term might be 30, 40, 50, $60 a month instead of 500. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm not saying those products aren't valuable in the right time and place, because I can't wait till I get to, well, actually, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to just keep buying real estate. But I was about to say, I can't wait till I get to the point where it makes sense for me to buy one of those products, right? And I hope the other case I'm about to tell you about never happens to me. I'm gonna be point blank about that. I hope the other case I'm about to tell you about never happens to me. All right. But if it does, that's another situation. But the difference is the extra money. The reason these other policies are so appealing is because they take the extra money that you pay them and they invest it. But the thing is, you might be able to borrow against those investments and those cash values, but they're not yours. And the money you put in the market, the money you put into your self-directed IRA, self-directed IRA, if you're in your 20s, you're like, I don't want to put my money into something I can't pull out for 5 years, for 50 years. Well, okay, I get that, but it grows if you do it right. It grows. I keep saying self-directed IRA. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't mean that. I don't want you to put money in a self-directed IRA unless you know what you're doing and you're going to make something happen. Because you're going to be like me. Like the first 3 years, it made no money, and then the company's going to be like, yeah, it made no money because you didn't do anything. It's called self-directed for a reason. That means you have to direct the investment and you didn't do squat. You were used to the IRAs where you put money in, put money in, put money in, and somebody else does the investment for you. That's not self-directed. That's a mutual fund. That's an index fund. That's some kind of fundity fund. Okay. It's not a self-directed IRA. So I was saying the wrong thing. And I'm gonna have to make sure we cut that out because we're getting ready to start the podcast back up. But what I mean to say is you can put it in your Roth IRA. Okay. Your Roth IRA is going to be the one that grows tax free. So if you heard me saying that, I'm sure some people dropped off like, this financial planner, I don't know what she's talking about. Count it in my head, not my heart. All right. Um, but when you're young, you don't think about, I want to do that. Okay. When you're young, you don't think about, oh, I'm going to invest something. But this is the kind of reason why we start all this while we're young. This is the kind of reason why we start and get insurance while we're young and healthy. So we can get the insurance that's $750,000 coverage when it only costs us $300 a year. Okay. We don't wait until we're in our 40s with sleep apnea and this damage and this disease and that disease, or our 50s or our 60s, and then it's $1,000 a month. Okay. We do it. We do these things when we're young. We put those policies in place when we're young. We put the sound financial principles in place when we're young. We start investing in the self. Nope. Almost did it again. In the Roth IRA or other retirement vehicles when we're young, so that money can be working for us in the background the whole time. And then when we get there and we need it and we're too broken, or we have other issues, or we have other time constraints, or fill in the blank of whatever it is that's keeping people my age and older from saving, when all that life happens, you got it. Okay. So I hope I've explained that part a little very well for you now that I corrected my terminology. The other case, and this one's kind of hard to talk about because I have found a friend and I, when I was in Maryland, I thought my oldest was autistic. He's not autistic, but I thought he was because he exhibited a lot of autistic um, tendencies. And so I started doing a whole lot of research, and I found out that some counties in Maryland had good support services, like Montgomery County, and other counties didn't have good resources, such as Prince George's County. And so a couple friends and I got together and we created MarylandAutism.org. And the whole point of MarylandAutism.org was to be a clearinghouse for information. Here's some state benefits that you can access. Here's some county benefits that you can access. We went through all those things. Okay. I learned about the world of having a disability and being on what is it called? SS something, the disability money that they give you, that the state will give you, the different things that you can get from the federal. We learned about all those things. And one of the things that I learned in that is that when it comes to a special needs child, now, I'm not saying that my son at the time had a prognosis that he would need those. I thought I was learning about this. I thought he was going to fit that gap. I was learning more to make sure I could be a good mom to him. All right. He turned out not to be autistic. He turned out not to need these things. But if he had, one of the things I would have had to worry about as a parent is if he made too much money, he could lose his disability. He could lose his benefits. And so there are certain things called special needs trusts that you can set up to provide funding that helps provide the care and the nurturing and the things that your special needs child needs when you are no longer here. The thing about a special needs trust is it's got to be funded somehow. And if you don't have any significant savings, so if you don't have, $2 or $3 million in assets and other things that can be used to fund the trust upon your death, well then you might actually be a good case model for one of these enduring lifetime insurance products, because you don't want to do like I'm doing, where I've got that thing set. Like if that boy piddles around and doesn't graduate on time and he takes 2 extra years, the money won't be there for him if his mama passes away. All right. Because I calculated it out. I gave him 2 extra years in case he went back to get his master's, right? But after that, he need to be a man and stand on his own 2 feet. All right. But if he did have turned if he had turned out to be autistic, I wouldn't want my insurance to cut off after 30 years, after 25 years or whatever it was I bought it for. I think it's 25 years now. I wouldn't want that because I'm gonna need it to be enduring. I'm gonna need it to last if I'm 70 or 80. I'm working hard to take good care of myself. Little one poked me in the eye the other day talking about, are you really going to be here till I'm 90? Till I'm 50? Yeah, that means you have to live till 90, mom. And I don't think you're going to live there. And I was like, first I was offended. And then I was like, well, honey, that's why I work out all the time. Because I'm trying to make sure I can be here till you're 50 at least. And that child. But the thing is I wouldn't want that to cut off. Right. So we have to understand that there are some valid use cases. But I'm going to tell you right now, you go to this thing in the middle of a hotel ballroom, and they start talking about how you can have tax-free loans, and you can do all these different things tax-free, and it's a borrow against this and a borrow against that. I want you to sit back for a second, go back home. They usually don't let you go back home. They want you to sign on the dotted line right away. Go back home, do the calculations, and if you have the money to afford those products, then look at what it would cost if you did term and invested the rest. If you did term and then invested the rest, you invested it in mutual funds, index funds, real estate, other things that are going to grow and be assets. And then when you pass away and you have $1.5 million in investment assets, your heirs actually get $1.5 million in investment assets. With the other guys, you buy a $500,000 policy. They take 100 of that $500 a month that you're paying. They put it towards term insurance or whatever insurance for you, right? They put that towards insurance for you because that's what it costs at that time. Or maybe it's like 50, but it grows over time, so they balance that out. They got actuarial tables. They figure out how they're not going to lose money on you, right? But when you start one of those policies, whatever they're charging you, the bulk of that is going towards investments. But guess who's getting that investment? That investment could grow to the same 1.5 million. It could grow to 2 million. It could grow to 5 million. But guess what your heirs are getting? 500,000. So I'm not saying those products aren't ever worthwhile, but if you can't afford to buy your next car in cash, don't come talking to me about those products because they're not making you rich like you think they are. Okay. Okay. Now I can't find the questions that came in. I must have left them in the office when me and my intern were going through stuff, but that's one of the ones that was on there. I remember that for sure. Okay. If you have a money question, go ahead and drop it in the chat because I'm going to talk about, I think I'm going to talk about what to do when you can't pay your bills. The economy is so tough right now, and it's really, really difficult for a lot of people to be able to make ends meet. And it's more difficult now than it was 5 years ago in many markets, especially like where I live right now. When my husband bought this house that we live in, it was $110,000, and now these houses are selling for almost 300,000. Some are on the mark for 300. I don't have access to the MLS to see if they actually busted that yet in sales, but I know what the market is calling for, and it's ridiculous to me that that's happened in just 10 years. But what's happening in this market is that people from very expensive markets want a quieter life. They want a higher quality of life. And they're selling off their big city homes that cost $1 million. And they're moving out here and buying property. And because they have lots of money, they are driving up the prices of what you can afford to purchase. And so those prices are high. And also because we are a couple hours from the metro, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, you'll find that food prices are higher, gas prices are a little wonky, clothing prices and availability is also a lot less desirable. And it's because of the relative isolation in which we live. This is a growing town, y'all. We got our second Starbucks, but we're still pretty rural town, and it's still lots of land out here and a lot of distance to get to where you need to go. And so the prices reflect that, unfortunately. And I thought, now this is foolish me, foolish JJ Conway. I thought I was going to move to Texas, y'all, and I was going to be eating from the farm every week. And just like when I lived in DC, we used to get our milk and our meat from an Amish farmer who we had a group, and sometimes our group would go up there to the farm, and it was just a little co-op. So they were in Pennsylvania, and we would get our milk, fresh milk right from the farm, raw milk. We would get the cheese made with that milk. We would get the products, the meat products. And I mean, I don't know what they did or didn't do to those chickens, but that chicken, I would cook that thing and it'd be a big old mammoth chicken, like the rumors of the KFC chickens. And they'd be a big old mammoth chicken, but that we'd cook that thing and eat off of it for 2-3 weeks. Me and little one, who's now off to college. I was like, wow, I don't know. They put the preservatives in the stuff you get from the store. The stuff from the store goes bad in a week. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that it's tough times right now. And so I think I'll talk about that. But if I don't have any questions, I'll probably end on that. But if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in. I tried to access my Q&A folder, and it's that for some reason Google products aren't letting me access right now. And so I know my logins are good. I know I paid my bills, but I don't know what's going on with that. So if you're in a situation where you've got bill after bill after bill. You've been robbing Peter to pay Paul, as the saying goes. You've been making the minimums on those credit card payments, and you've been using credit cards to float what you couldn't afford to put food on the table or clothes on your children's back or shoes on your children's feet. And now those credit card minimums are getting high. That interest is climbing up every month. That credit card is adding another $200 to $300, $500. Even if you don't buy anything, that interest just makes it worse and worse and worse. And you might be feeling like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to pay these bills. I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. I don't know how I'm ever going to swim above this and get my head back up above water. And I've been there. I've been $800,000 in debt. And I can tell you right now, it's not easy, but you can do it. It's simple. You can do it. It's not fun, but you can do it. So the very first thing that I'm going to recommend for any of my new friends out there, or maybe some of my old friends that have fallen on hard times, if you can't pay your bills, the first thing I want you to do is to make a commitment to yourself that you are not going to keep digging this hole any deeper, that you are going to spend less than you make. And if you don't make it, you're not spending it. And that doesn't just apply to shopping. That doesn't just apply to gas in the car. That doesn't just apply to the things that we think about when we think about shopping, but it also applies to giving. And it also applies to the I deserve this items of life. Okay. And so I have a phrase that I use a lot. I'm a very big person of faith. I really do believe in tithing. I believe in giving. I believe in a sustained program of giving. And if you are in a situation where you feel like you can't give, well, I understand that. And I know that God understands that. And if you share my faith, there's actually provision in the Bible what to do if you need to miss a tithe and get caught up in it. But I have found that almost every time in my life, even when I was 800 something $1,000 in debt, I could find a way to give back unto the Lord. Give back into the house of the Lord. There was one time where I found out I couldn't, and that was when we moved out of my on base house. Though ever since I moved into that base house in Barksdale in summer of 2010, they messed around with me, and they said it was going to cost one thing, and then they ended up adding $1,000 to it, to what my rent was going to be, and I couldn't afford it, and so then I had to break the lease and move out. But the lease fee was 2 months, and 1 month I got to where I had $900 left in my account. Y'all, I had $900 left. My tithe check was $952. I'll never forget it. My tithe check was $952. I made real good money. I had a tithe check of $952, but I tell you what else I had. I had a rent of $1,100. and I had childcare of $700. So I wasn't able to pay all those three. I didn't even know how I was going to pay rent. And I remember it was the first and only time in my life where I ever couldn't pay my tithe. And sure enough, I sought the Lord for that, and I took care of the things that I needed to take care of, and I got back on track as soon as I could. So I don't ever want anybody to feel any shame if you can't give, but I will tell you one thing. Before you give to McDonald's, give to something that's bigger than you. Before you give to the man at the coffee shop, give to something that's bigger than you. It will keep you grounded in your journey to dump debt and build wealth. Okay. But that's how do I want to say it? That's part of the process. That's a journey between you and the Lord. I remember in college, I made $40 a month. Everybody else made like 300 a month, but I couldn't afford the computer. Computers and the internet computers weren't so brand new, but most people didn't have computers back then. The internet was brand new. Like the internet came out that year, right? And I couldn't afford the computer. And so they said, okay, we'll give you the Air Force will give you one, but you got to take it out of your paycheck for the next 4 years. And so they did. And everybody else had a couple $100 every month, but I had 40. And I was like, well, my tithe would technically be $30 or whatever it was. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to tithe my time. And I volunteered a lot at church. I volunteered a lot. I was on the parish council and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't even know how I got on the tithing, because that's really not the foundation of what I wanted to talk to. But I guess somebody needs to be encouraged on that. Okay. You can, if you really can't afford, to give this month, then you can't afford to give this month. And the Lord understands that. But you're not going to tell me you can't afford to give if you're telling me you're paying cable and you're paying Starbucks and you're paying McDonald's and you're paying the nail tech. There's a lot of things that we pay for that we actually really don't need to pay for. Okay. And so that leads me to my next point. So my first point, if you can't pay your bills, is to stop spending more than you bring in. So if you're only going to get paid $200, $300, $400 next week, you're not spending 500. You're spending what you have, and you are making prioritized decisions coming from a place of power, not victimhood. You're going to make prioritized decisions about what is going to get paid. And I'll tell you how to handle the things that don't get paid. And I'll tell you some recommendations for prioritizing that. But that needs to be the mindset, is I am going to spend less than I bring in. And then the extra of what I bring in beyond what I'm spending is going to be used to clean up the mess. Okay. So that's the first thing. And then the next thing is, I'm going to ask you to, no kidding, cut out everything. Everything that you don't need to survive needs to go. If you are in a situation where you can't pay your bills, then everything that you don't need needs to go. And you would be surprised at how many bills you don't actually need to pay. I'm not suggesting you steal from the man. All right. I'm suggesting that maybe you don't need that cell phone, or maybe you don't need this, or maybe you don't need that. I realize in today's world, it's much harder to get by without a cell phone, but you could put it on vacation mode for 2 months and just go with the internet base, a Google Voice number that's free. And for 2 months, maybe you just stop paying Verizon or whoever that $100 a month. They'll put you on a plan. It's like $5 a month. It's not free. I wish it was, but they'll give you up to 6 months of a vacation plan where they just kind of pause your service. You can still use your phone. You can get that Google Voice line. It might take some consternation to get people to call you, but hey, if the bill collectors don't have your number, maybe it's a little more peaceful for you. I'm joking, because most Google numbers I've had get a lot of spam calls. So there is that. But the thing is a lot of us think, oh, there's no way I could cut that. There are ways to exist. One time I bought something for my son. I don't know if it's still a product, and I don't know if it's any good, if it still is. But I bought this product. It was $40 for a 1-year subscription, and it was the equivalent of a phone line, and it went through the internet. Well, internet is one of those things that I absolutely think we don't need to pay for when we can't pay our bills, because you can find internet almost everywhere. Okay. And so I would encourage you to look at that. Are you spending 80, 100, 150 a month on internet? And I understand my whole business, y'all, is based on the internet. But I remember being $800,000 in debt and starting my business. And I remember writing books and doing research, sitting at Panera Bread or at Starbucks or at Whataburger. And if I couldn't afford the whatever dollar or $1.50 it was to get some hot water for tea, I would sit in the parking lot. They usually had one spot where you could use the internet. That's why I don't begrudge them now. I'll shop at those places now because they carried me through a tough time. You can find coffee shops with free Wi-Fi. Almost everybody's got free Wi-Fi now, but you can find places. I remember writing one of my books in the foyer of Shreveport Community Church in Louisiana, in Shreveport, Louisiana, and they had this big kids play space, and every so often the baristas there would have mercy on me, and they'd bring me over a little snack and a cocoa, or maybe they'd give me a half price on a cocoa because it was getting ready to close. And I wrote most of a book there. I didn't have internet. I couldn't afford it. I was 800 and something thousand dollars in debt. And so I'm going to encourage you, if you find yourself in a situation where you can't pay your bills, start slashing everything. Okay, JJ, well, what should I pay for? Well, I like people to pay for what's called the four walls. Okay. The four walls, you need a place to stay and it needs to be safe. So you need to make sure that you cover your rent or your mortgage or your utilities. Okay, you need those things. Now, if your rent, mortgage, utilities, and all that is too much, then you're going to have to do what I did. You're going to have to tuck tail and move, and just admit that this is too much and move. That's the number one problem that I find facing people, especially in today's market where people took a lot of the interest only loans, or the economy was doing so well before COVID that people took out really expensive home equity lines. And now the market has dipped some because with COVID there was a spike, right? And people needed money, so people pulled money. But now those chickens are coming home to roost, right? And so now we feel like we can't even pay it. Well, at some point we're gonna have to face reality. Dr. John Deloney calls it choosing reality. And I find it to be very tough to do sometimes because reality can be depressing, especially when it's your fault. Sometimes you just didn't know. One of the families I worked with, the husband was in the oil fields. He was pulling $7,000 to $10,000 a month doing manual labor in the oil fields. The money was great. They bought them a big old house. Guess what happened? The oil ran out of that location. The company moved on somewhere else, and they didn't take him with them. And guess what happened? Now they're stuck in this situation with a $4,000 or $5,000 a month mortgage, and they're only making $3,000 a month in their new reality. So sometimes life happens, and it just happens, and we've got to deal with it. We've got to face the reality. And I get it. If you lose your job next month, and I don't want to speak evil of somebody. I don't want anybody to think I'm not speaking life, because I do want to speak life. I don't want you to lose your job next month. But let's just say something happened, and you got downsized last month. Okay, you got downsized last month. I'm not speaking evil on anybody. Somebody's already in the situation. All over the United States, there are people who are in the situation. They got downsized last month. You know what's going to happen to a lot of people come December? There are a lot of people who get fired over Christmas. I think it's the absolute worst thing. I'm like, at least get them over to the next year. But the company doesn't want to do that. They want to cut weight with the old year so they can report how they saved money when they start off the new year. Okay. So a lot of people end up getting fired at Christmas time, and it just breaks my heart, right? But let's just say you got fired last month. And you thought for a month, okay, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do some odd jobs, but I'm going to go on some interviews, and it's going to be great. And you did that for a month, and then you realize, you know what, this job market stinks. I'm not finding anything. Nobody's hiring. Everybody says they can't find good help, but when good help shows up, they don't want to hire me. And so you're starting to get discouraged. And 1 month turns into 2 months, turns into 3 months, and you've been floating everything on the credit card. And now that credit card is maxed out. And not only is the credit card maxed out, but now they're charging you the interest every month. It's growing and growing and growing and growing. Even if you can't spend anything, your balance is growing and growing and growing and growing. It's time to face reality. It's time to face reality and be like, okay, I thought I could make this work going the way I wanted to go. I thought I could make this work going the way all the people on TV told me to go. I thought I could make this work the way the guy with the business opportunity in the hotel room told me it would work. When he told me to believe in myself and put it on Hip National Bank, that old credit card, so that I could turn around and make this business $1 million next week and I'll be able to pay it all off. I mean, don't they make it sound so good? Oh, they make it sound so good. And I do know people who make great money with those kinds of things. But most people I know are broker than broke. And so we'll talk later on in another time about how once you get everything together, we want to have a savings program. So the next time that the fire falls in your life, the next time that the rain falls in your life, the next time something goes sideways in your life, or the next time you get a gut punch in your life, you have a little savings cushion to help carry you through. But in the moment we're talking about right here, you can't even pay those bills. So we're going to cut out everything that's unnecessary and we're going to focus on the four walls. We're going to focus on a place to live. So we're going to pay our rent or our mortgage. And if we can't afford them, we're going to drop down. If we can't drop down, we're going to rent out rooms. We're going to do something to make sure that we can keep a roof over our head and be able to get to and from work safely and cleanly. We're not going to go through winter up in the Northeast without heat. We're not going to go through without this or without that. You can live a little while without hot water, but you do need some water. You need running water. I'm going to need you to pay your water bill. Okay? So that's your housing and your utilities, all right? I'm going to need you to cover some basic transportation. Now, don't tell me you got to go participate in Porsche's new monthly. It's not new anymore. It's been out for like a year or two, I think. But they have a new lease program where you pay them $10,000 a month. And anytime you want one of their cars, they show up with it. Not too bad. You got $10,000 to burn and you want to look pretty snazzy, right? But if you can't pay your bills, you can't put food on your table. You're doing like I used to do, going from store to store to store to store for free samples and calling that the good life. Then you don't need extravagant transportation. And what you need is to look at your options and make sure that your options are really saving you money. I was in the DC area. I was stationed in the DC area a couple times. And one of the times my agency that I was at had a program where they covered the cost up to 180 or something like that every month of your metro fee. So that we're trying to encourage people to drive to work. I mean, they were trying to encourage people to stop driving to work and take the transit to work. So it alleviates congestion in the parking lot, also is better for the environment, yada, yada. Okay. But when I calculated out from where I live, I didn't live convenient to a metro stop. I would have had to drive an hour to the park and ride and then ride another hour into town. Okay. Because I was such a far out stop, the stipend they would have given me every month didn't even cover my metro, and it sure enough didn't cover the $5 a day that I had to pay to be in the commuter lot. So it was like, I might as well pay the $95 a month that it cost for me to just park underneath the agency. So you have to evaluate things. But a lot of times we get all in our feels and we just make these decisions and we don't stop to calculate the cost. And especially because everybody else makes something sound so good. Oh, they make it sound so good. Like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you taking the free money from the government? You know why I'm not taking the free money from the government? Because the free money from the government costs more than just spending my own money. Oh, y'all, that's a whole word right there. That's appropriate for so many situations. Oh, we might need to extract that out for a clip. But seriously, we got to count the cost, okay? So 4 walls, I'm going to need you to cover your basic housing. I'm going to need you to cover your basic transportation. I'm going to need you to make sure you got utilities because I want you to have heat in winter, right? I don't care about AC in summer. I do care. I live in Texas, but I understand that that's not a necessity. Okay. It can be in certain areas if you live certain far south. But for most of you watching me, you're far enough north. You can get by for a few weeks without AC. You can go sit in Walmart for a little bit to cool off and then go to bed. All right. That sounds a little harsh, but sometimes when we're in these messes, we got to be harsh with ourselves because us coddling ourselves and us ignoring the situation is what got us here. But I'm gonna need you to cover four walls. Your basic living, okay? Your basic transportation, your utilities, okay? And then the last thing I'm going to want you to cover is your food. Now, again, we are not talking about bison steaks every Sunday. Now, I chuckle with my husband. We have become so bougie after my retiring from the Air Force, and now that with the especially now with the big one, he's off at college, so he's not eating us out of house and home anymore, right? We have so much discretionary money to spend on food, and let me tell you, we spend it and we enjoy it. But I'll never forget bouncing around between Sam's and Kroger's and whatever other stores there were to get those free samples because I couldn't afford it to feed my little one. I'll never forget being $800,000 in debt and showing up to, and this is so sad. This is so sad. I hate to admit that I was a fishes and loaves saint, but you know what? When I was 800 and something thousand dollars in debt, I was a fishes and loaves saint. I came to your Bible study and I took my plate home and I heaped that plate big and I could eat off that plate for a couple days. Yes, I did. That's why I don't begrudge people who come to my Bible study and eat. But you got to be at the Bible study. We take orders at the start of Bible study, and we don't feed you after the Bible study if you weren't there at the beginning of the Bible study to place your order. But I ain't gonna be mad at you. You know, when we were at Cold Smoke, when we were at Cold Smoke, we had the college kids coming, and I would order after we were done with Bible study. We had a tab that you had to have, and you had to meet a room minimum. I'd be like, does anybody else need an extra meal? Oh my goodness. And we would order everybody an extra meal to take back with them to campus. Oh my goodness, those were good times. But there are ways to do things without spending money. And I'm not saying just be one of those people that shows up to church for food. But you know what? If somebody has a program that can help you, take it. If somebody has an opportunity where they can bless you and you're in a situation where you need the blessing, take it. Cover your four walls, take the blessings that are offered to you to help alleviate some of those pains, and then we're going to set about the process of actually getting yourself out from the mess. Okay. So, first things first, we're making sure excuse me, we're making a commitment to ourselves that we are never, ever, not ever going to spend more than we make again. We are whatever comes in, that's all that's going out. Okay. Make that commitment to me. You say, "Oh, if I was hard enough on times, I would do that." You know, I offer people. I used to do this. I don't do it anymore because no one would do it. I used to offer people, I will pay you $100 a month every month that you're with me if you can give me your credit card statements every month and you're not putting anything else on there. And I would do that for like the first 3 months, like at least 3 months. No one would do it. And some people would get so offended with me that they wouldn't want to work with me anymore. So I just stopped offering it. I was like, okay, fine. You know what? I can't control that. But if you want to have peace at night, if you want to stop worrying about the bill collectors, if you want to stop worrying that you're going to come home and be locked out of your house and your stuff on the curb, if you want to stop worrying about the fact that your car might be repoed every minute, if you want to stop parking around the corner in your friend's garage or in their carport to make sure the repo man can't find your car, look, if you want to have some peace about your money and about the situation that you're in, these steps work. You got to make a commitment to spending less than you make. And then you got to cut out everything that isn't necessary. And what are the necessary things? Your four walls. Now, here's an interesting fact about the four walls. There are a lot of people who will pay their credit card bill before they pay their four walls because they don't want their credit to go bad. Let me tell you something. You're that far into debt that you can't pay your bills. Your credit's already bad. It's already bad. It's already toast. You think those utilities you're not paying don't factor into your credit? Oh, they factor in certain other ways. Trust me, it factors into your entire financial picture. Even though you don't go to the FICO website and see Verizon and Washington Gas and whatever have you. Okay. So trust me, if you are in the situation I'm talking to, you can't pay your bills every month. Your credit is already shot. Don't worry about the credit. Take care of yourself. Put the oxygen mask on you first. I promise those greedy credit card companies, and maybe there's some out there that aren't greedy, but them credit card companies, they're going to be okay. Their CEOs are going to sleep well at night, and their employees are going to get paid. Okay, because people are always going to be in debt. People, the Bible says, the poor you'll have with you always. All right, but it's time to get you out of that rat race and to get you from stealing from your future and your kids' future and giving it to their future. Okay, so we are going to make a commitment. We will spend less than we make every month. If we don't have it, we don't give it. If we don't have it, we don't spend it. And here's my other corollary with that. If the Lord didn't give it to me, then he hasn't told me to give it. Oh, y'all, you better write that down. If the Lord hasn't given it to me, he ain't told me to give it. I can't believe how many times I have been in somebody's church, not necessarily my church, but somebody's church, that they're like, we need you to give that mortgage payment and the Lord will give it back to you. You can't beat God given. God can multiply that light bill 40, 50, 60, 100 times. If you have faith, pay that money to the church and the Lord will bless you real good. What's going to happen if you pay that money to the church? You about to get foreclosed on. You about to get your lights cut off, because guess what the Bible also says? Because given it shall be given. That's a true statement. But the Bible also says not to be that the borrower is slave to the lender, and that we ought not be a borrower. And the Bible also says, who of us who are going to build a tower don't first count the cost so we don't become a laughing stock later when we can't finish the job? I'm asking you to count the cost. What you've been doing probably hasn't been working. So if it hasn't been working, why not try another way? If the Lord hasn't put it in your hands, he ain't giving it to you to give. And I don't care what anybody else says. When people come at me because they think I have all this money, I'm like, look, I finally got to zero net worth a couple years ago. We're trying to rebuild, but college and all the other things, the things. I don't know. Right? But people come at me all the time. And if the Lord give it to me to give, I give it. Now I don't give to them. You come asking me for money, I already know the answer is no, because the Lord and me, we have an understanding. The Lord is never going to touch my heart to give to somebody who asks me for money. Ooh, what? Yeah, me and the Lord have that understanding, because I got a big heart and I will give and do, and I will pay your way to the meeting, and I will do all the things, and then I will have enabled instead of empowered. And so when I go into prayer about it, me and the Lord have that understanding. But your church is doing a fundraiser, I just want to give. You're doing a building fund, I just want to give. You're doing a fund to raise money for missionaries, I just want to give. And my big heart wants to give. And one of the things that I had to learn is, if the Lord didn't put it in my hand to give, then he hasn't given it to me to give. So I have to let somebody else rise up to the occasion. And sometimes we cut off other people's blessings by giving what we don't have, or we cut off other people's blessings by giving what we're supposed to pay for the rent, or giving what we're supposed to pay for our child's lunches. Like, how you think your child gonna eat? Oh, I know ain't nobody else in here ever dug through a trash can because they were hungry. How you think your child gonna eat? You teaching them to scam? We're not teaching people to scam. Why do I sound so mean? I'm not trying to sound mean. I love you. I love you. I do. You're watching me. I love you. Look, I love you just because you're watching me. I really, really love you. But look at the long-term repercussions of what we are doing with our money, what we're doing with our time, what we're doing with our relationships. And a lot of it happens under the name of the church. And I'm a pastor, so I can say that. All right, all right. So we're gonna spend less than we make, and we're not gonna spend what we don't have, and we're not gonna make the hole deeper. Okay, we got this big financial hole, and we've got a teeny tiny shovel. We're just gonna do the best we can do within sound financial guidelines. But the first thing we're doing, we're gonna stop making the hole bigger by spending less than we make. Then we're gonna cut everything out that's not required for our four walls, and we are not going to pay other people before we take care of our four walls. Well, JJ, what am I going to do if I don't pay this credit card bill? They're going to sue me. I'm going to teach you how to not get sued. All right. Let me tell you why people sue people who don't pay their bills. Okay. If it's a family member, they petty. All right. I can't help you with that. But if it's a legit business and they're going to sue you, it's because you have not given them the confidence that you are going to pay them. And it's not that hard. It's embarrassing, it's tough, it's meticulous, and it's tedious, and some of us we just it just eats us alive. But it works. And the simple strategy is called a pro rata letter. What's a pro rata letter? Well, first let me explain pro rata, and then I'm going to explain the pro rata letter. Okay. If you cannot pay your bills every month, what you're going to do, you're going to cover your four walls. You're going to cover your basic housing, your transportation, your food, you're going to cover your utilities. Okay. You might even need to cover basic clothing. I've sometimes seen people lump utilities in with housing and put clothing as a fourth wall. Um, but most of us, if we found on hard times tomorrow, we got enough clothes to make it a couple months. Okay. But if it drags on, then yeah, we're going to need some basic clothing. Again, we're not talking about Gucci. We're not talking about Louis. All right. We're talking about the basic necessities to get us through this time. Okay. No bison steaks up in here. You know, I laugh. I think I was saying that I laugh with my husband about how bougie we get and how much money we spend on food. But I remember the time when we didn't. I even after I was climbing out of that $800,000 of debt, y'all. When Cubby was born, I was stationed in D.C. My husband was in Texas, so he was in Texas. I was in D.C. Do you know my rent was $1,800 a month? Do you know my child care was $450 a month on a 5-week month? How much is that? $26.50. Y'all, my child care costs more than my rent. And well, everybody can't afford that. What did everybody else do? You know what everybody else did? They went to undocumented workers to care for their children. Well, I had enough abuse in daycares when I was growing up. I got abused all different kinds of ways in daycares when I grew up. I wasn't putting my kid into daycare. I would to God that I wouldn't have to work anyway, but it wasn't my plan. It wasn't my plan to be a working mom, but it's just kind of how life happened. And I'm glad that y'all are on there. Thank you all for being on today. But I'm telling you today, sometimes life just happens. And when Cubby came along, I had 4 miscarriages. The doctors told me I was never going to have children again. The last miscarriage was stillborn at 5 months. When the Cubby came along, I did not believe I was going to have this baby. And so, yes, I probably could have found a cheaper daycare if I had believed I was actually going to have this baby. I honestly didn't think I was going to have him till about the 5th month. The 5th month passed, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is really going to happen. I'm really going to have this baby. And then it was like, oh no, I don't have daycare. I didn't have a crib. I didn't have a nursery. I didn't have nothing. Y'all, I didn't have I didn't have a car seat. I didn't have nothing. Diapers, nothing. Because in my mind, in my heart, in my psyche, it was just going to be another loss. So I wasn't even prepared. And so some of that is my fault, but the reality is it doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's the situation you got to deal with right now. And I had to deal with the fact that my daycare, y'all, it was $2,200 on a 4-week month and $2,650 on a 5-week month. Y'all, I couldn't see anything back then. And let me tell you, we weren't eating no bison steaks. We weren't having shrimp on the Barbie on Sundays. We weren't doing all the things we do now. We were not, because we knew we had to abide by sound financial principles. And the Air Force, they paid me a lot of locality pay to live in the DC area, but they didn't pay me that much. No, they didn't. All right. So we're going to cover our 4 walls. Okay. If you do have kids and daycare is a thing, then we do want to cover that. But I'm also going to encourage you to sit down with me and actually go through those calculations, because I had a young lady that I was working with. She was about to have a surprise 5th child. And we started calculating it out. And I was like, look, you already live an hour away. And you have all this money you're spending to daycare. Here's how much it costs for an infant. Here's how much you were making. Y'all, her entire paycheck once this baby came, because her other ones were older, so they didn't need before and after care. They didn't all need all the care. They only needed like a little bit of care. But when the infant came, this is that same area where childcare was like $2,000 a month, right? I was like, this is what you make. This is what you spend on gas. Your husband's got a new job, so y'all can't ride together anymore. He's driving to one area of the DC Metroplex, and you're driving to another one. What are you working for? You're basically working to put your kids into daycare. You're working to cover the gas to go to go to a job and say you have a job. Which for some of us, I get. I really get. I'm gonna tell you, I didn't think it was gonna hit because I love being mom to my kids. But one of the things that I do miss is how important I felt when I put that uniform on and people were like, Lieutenant Colonel Conway, right? And now I'm just an overweight, stuffy mom. There's a whole night and day. And there are times when I miss that. There are times when I miss all the good stuff I got done and all the moving and shaking and all the high level meetings I used to be in. And I'm okay with that because I'm at that stage in my life where the fact that this one still wants mom to sit with him till he falls asleep, that's still precious to me. The big one, he lasted till 10 years, and then he didn't need mama anymore. So I think I got a year and a half left with this guy. But that's precious to me, and I'm okay with that. But some of us haven't gotten there yet. Some of us, that's important to. You got to question, why are you making the decisions you're making with your money? Are you making a decision with your money because it's important to you to be needed? It's important to you to feel like you've accomplished something. It's important to you to have that job. Maybe that's not the right answer right now. Is the importance of how you earn your money keeping you from taking a second or third job that might allow you to make more money? And I get it, y'all. I get it. I'm not driving Uber. I'm not driving Lyft. I'll take a Lyft driver. I'll take an Uber driver. And the last one almost convinced me because it seems like it's a lot more safer now. But I don't know who's getting in that car. And I know plenty of single ladies who drive both of them, and they tougher than me. And I'm like, good for you. But you know what? I found a way to make money. I help people get out of debt. With to God that I don't ever have to do that. But if I had to, would I be willing to humble myself? I remember when I was in the military and I was 800 something thousand dollars in debt. So I was a major at the time of my divorce. And I wanted to get an extra job, and the approvals you have to go through to get an extra job. I found out I can't do what some of those financial planners teach. They say like, oh, go get a job delivering pizzas. I can't deliver pizza. What I look like? I show up at one of my troops' doors, one of my airmen's doors, delivering a pizza. Like they actually had those kinds of restrictions on what you could and couldn't do because they didn't want to disrupt discipline and good order. Right. And so sometimes we find ourselves in those situations, but whatever situation you're in, I'm telling you right now, there's no money situation you can present to me that I'm ever going to say, oh, yeah, well, that's one I can't handle. The only situation that you're not going to be able to climb yourself out of is the one you don't think you can climb yourself out of. I'm here to tell you it can be done if you follow these principles. So you're going to spend less than you make. You're going to cover your four walls, okay? And then we're going to do the rest of it according to pro rata. Now, what pro rata means is fair share, okay? So let's say we're going to keep the numbers round. I know some of you live in places where this is like ridiculously low, but some of you actually live in places where this is not too terribly bad. It's still poverty line, but it's not too terribly bad. All right. So let's just say I'm making $1,000 a month, and to cover my rent, because I finally bit the bullet and took on a roommate, or maybe I'm Airbnb a room out or something like that. But to cover what I need to cover for my rent, my portion of the rent is maybe $400. That's still a little high on $1,000 income, but it can be done, right? My basic food, my basic transportation, and all those things. When the time all my four walls are covered, I done cut out Netflix, I done cut out Hulu Plus, I done cut out Disney Plus, I done cut out Amazon Prime. Oh, the Amazon Prime, that hurts. But I cut out Amazon Prime. I put my cell phone on vacation mode, and I got me a Google Voice number to carry me through the next couple of months, just to give my finances a little breathing room. I done put my cable on vacation mode. I put this and that. I done called all my credit card companies, and I said, I can't continue to pay. Please put me on a hardship plan. They've closed all your accounts, and they have now just put you on a 5-year plan. The good news with that is they take you off of the interest and all that stuff. So you don't have to worry about that anymore, but you can't use the card because I'm committed to my future. And I know that if I ever really, really, really need another credit card, then by the time I clean all this up, there'll be 20 million of them offering me to come back. All right. But right now I'm taking care of my financial future. I have done all these things to cut all these costs. And at the end of the month, I got $100 left over when I pay my 4 walls and I pay my basic things that I need. I got $100 left over. So with that $100 left over, now we pay off everybody who isn't a 4 walls. We pay Dillard's, we pay the credit card, we pay Chase, we pay whoever else is on there that needs to be paid. You might even throw, Uncle Frankie and Tommy on there. You done took out a loan with your uncle. You took money from grandma. We might need to put grandma on that pro rata list, but she's not getting the $50 a month that you told her you would give her. She probably gonna end up getting 5 or 2 or 3 or something to that effect. Whatever it is, we take all your other bills and we do a proportional fair share. So I'm going to pretend that after my 4 walls, all I've got is 3 bills. Okay. I better write this down so I don't forget what I'm doing because I'll forget my numbers. Okay. Let's just say I've got 3 bills left over. Okay. I'm paying my mortgage, my rent. I was foolish enough to buy a car on a payment plan instead of just paying for it up front. I have a car note. I've got my basic food, my utilities, things like that. I got $100 left every month. And I've got 3 additional bills that I just can't pay off of that. One of those, we're going to put that as Dillard's. All right. Dillard's, and their bill is $300 a month. Okay. And then I've got a Chase card because when I thought I was going to get a job and I thought this people were going to hire me and I thought I was going to get this bonus for coming onto this job, and none of that stuff panned out. But every month I was using the card to pay for food and pay for gas and pay for things. So now I owe Chase, and their minimum payment is $500 a month. Okay. So I got Dillard's at $300 because, I thought I had to dress for success and show up to my interview in brand new clothes. So I foolishly ran up the Dillard's card. Plus, I was doing a little retail therapy because it made me feel better to go shopping, and I could just charge. And when everything worked out, I knew I could just pay it all off. Famous last words. All right. So, but I owe Chase $500 a month. And then my dear kitty, who I just love so much, she got sick. And I had to go to what do you call it? The care place, the care loan they have for pets. Somebody drop that in the chat because I can't remember what it is. It's a loan for pets. When your pet is sick and you don't have money to take care of your sick pet, you can go and get this care loan. And this care loan covers the cost of getting your pet care. Get their surgeries and whatever, right? And then you got to pay. That thing has a crazy interest rate. All right. So my dear cat had an issue and I couldn't afford it. And now my care loan is $200 a month minimum. Okay. I paid everything else with my 4 walls, but I only got left $100, but I got $1,000 worth of bills here. $300 to Dillard's, $500 to Chase, and $200 to the pet people. All right. Care. I don't know. I don't see it. Somebody drop that in the chat for me. All right. Pro rata means this $100 is all I got left. I ain't paying anybody what they owe or what they want because I only got 100. Care people want 200. I don't have 200. I only got 100. So what am I going to do with the 100? I'm going to take the 100 and I'm going to give them their fair share. So out of all of my debt, that's why I made these numbers round, y'all. You see what I did there? Anybody who likes math, you see what I did here. What I did here is I got $1,000 of debt. And when I do the percentages, Dillard's gets 30%. The debt that I owe, the monthly payment I owe Dillard's is 30% of what I owe outside of my 4 walls. What I owe Chase is 50%. Okay. I owe Chase 50% of all the other things I owe outside of my 4 walls. I owe the pet people. I don't know where somebody give me the name because I'm going to keep calling them the pet people. All right. I owe the pet people $200 a month, but that's 20% of all the money I have to pay out every month in addition to my 4 walls. That's 20%. Okay. So that's their fair share of what I have left over. Dillard's gets 30% of what I have left over. Chase gets 50% of what I have left over. Pet people get 20% of what I have left over. Pet people ain't getting $200. They're getting 20. Dillard's isn't getting $300. They're getting 30. Let me say that again. Dillard's isn't getting $300. They're getting 30. Chase ain't getting $500. They're getting 50. They're getting their fair share of the money I have left over. And that's all they're getting because I'm done building the hole deeper. And here's what I'm going to do. This is where people fail. This is where people get sued. This is where people don't listen and they have suffer the consequences. I need you to hear me if this is the issue for you. You have to call these people and write these people or email these people or however you interact with their customer service and let them know you are going to eventually pay them in full. How am I ever going to pay them when I owe $500 a month and all I can give them is 50? They're going to sue me. They're not going to sue you because you're going to send them a pro rata letter with every bill that you write that $50 check. And in your pro rata letter, you're going to say, I had this issue happen. I'm in way over my head financially. I'm getting my life back together. I owe you this much. But as you can see from my basic bare bones budget, all I got left every month is $100. See, this is why you got to cut all the stuff out. Because everybody and their brother tells the credit card company, I can't pay my bills. Well, what they really mean is I got to have a nice birthday party for my kiddo. I got to buy a new big screen TV for the big game. I got to have a nice Christmas for my family. I got to get new furniture because my aunties are coming over for Easter. See, that's what the credit card company hears when most of the people, 99% of the people say they can't pay. You got to prove it to them. You got to make sure they know every time they look at your account, this person is going to give me my money. I don't need to spend a lawyer fee to sue them. They going to give me my money. Now, in the vast majority of cases, you're not going to have to give them your money. You're going to do this for about 6 months to a year, and they're going to be like, you know what? We appreciate you. We're going to strike this off, okay? Or we know what? We appreciate you. We're going to lower your balance. We're going to negotiate. We're going to boom, 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 okay? But see, you can't start it that way. That's where a lot of people fail because what happens is people come to me, how do I get the credit card company to settle for pennies on the dollar? Well, you know what? Before they settle, they're going to pull all kinds of legal tricks on you. And I don't think you want them shenanigans in your life. I think you would rather go this route. Oh, well, I'm just going to file bankruptcy. Okay, first of all, the bankruptcy lawyer, not knocking bankruptcy lawyers, good ones are worth their weight in gold. But first of all, the bankruptcy lawyer going to cost you $2,500, $3,000, up to $5,000, depending on what market you're in. And you know what the bankruptcy lawyer is going to do? The bankruptcy lawyer is going to help negotiate almost the exact same payment plan that you would have been on if you'd have done the same thing I'm doing. Only this way you do it for free and you avoid having bankruptcy on your record. That's a win-win. And y'all know I love the win-win-wins. All right. So I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to explain to Dillard's, Chase, and the pet people that I'm on hard times. I can't pay my bills. I'm trying to get it all together. Here's my bare bones budget. Here's what I make. All I got left there at the end of the month after I pay my rent and my utilities and some basic food is $100 a month. And now I'm going to give you your fair share of that, which is $30. And you're going to write that letter every single month. You're going to write that $30 check every single month. And you are going to do that and repeat on repeat on repeat on repeat till you either get more money and give them more and write a new letter, or until they strike off the balance so you don't have to pay the rest of it anymore, or until you get it caught up. And when you come out of the other side, I'm telling you, this is hard to do. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to write all those letters. It's embarrassing to send all those letters. Sometimes the people call you and they're just so mean to you. They just treat you so bad when they're trying to get your money out of it because they think you're lying. But if you put it the way I'm telling you to put it and you send it every month, they are going to realize you're serious and they're not going to waste their time suing you. And you will be able to slowly, but surely climb out of this mess. And when you do, you will be able to pay off your debts. And when you do, you'll be able to build yourself up a savings so that the next time life happens, it doesn't have to hit you as hard. The next time the water heater breaks, you've got money in the savings to get it fixed. The next time a tire blows, you've got money in savings to patch it up or to replace it. That's what I want for you, that feeling of financial security, knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to be all right. And I'm here to tell you, you're going to be all right. I know it stinks to be in the situation where you can't pay your bills. I was making six figures and I couldn't pay my bills. 800 something thousand dollars in debt. I had to call them up and say, I can't pay. And I found that because I had been a good client for a lot of the companies were very gracious with me. But mortgage company gave me 2 months reprieve. They didn't even do a loan modification. They just gave me 2 months because I'd been moving around with the military and taking loans with them for years. And they knew that I was a good client. You know, um, you've got to be able to show them that you're going to eventually pay and then they won't sue you. But it all starts with making that foundational determination that you are going to spend less than you make. And for any of us, even if we make plenty of money, we need to make the determination that we are going to spend less than we make. We're going to be strategic about our spending so that we have something to invest and we have something to save and we have something to give. Should probably be in the other order. We have something to give and we have something to invest and we have something to save. Nope, I like a different order. So we have something to save and we have something to give and we have something to invest and then we have something to live on. Because we were supposed to have abundant life. My favorite book says that my Savior came that I might have life and that more abundantly. It's the thief that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And the thief has been stealing, killing, and destroying many of us through our finances for far too long. Now, if you've enjoyed what I've said today, if you've felt encouraged by this lesson, I want to encourage you to join me every first Tuesday. We do a group coaching call. And if you will, it should be at the bottom of the screen, jjclink.com/group. Let me see if I can put it in the chat. Okay. I'm going to encourage you to join me. And if you are on this and you reach out to me in the next 24 hours, I will give you a free 3-month membership into this group coaching because I feel so strongly about these concepts and about the fact that you can make it in a world that tries to tell you that you can't. The world wants to make you feel less than. The world wants to make you feel bad about yourself. The world wants to make you feel like there's all hope is lost. Why? Because they know that's how they can get your money out of you. And I'm here to show you how to be that wise steward and use the money that you've been given to glorify the Lord through your life, through the life of your family, and through the changes and impact in your community. And in our group coaching package, in our group coaching program, we come together as a group, and anybody who has a question, we walk through it. You have a business idea, we walk through it. You want to talk through a real estate deal, we walk through it. We walk through all those things in our private Zoom room every first Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central. All right. I don't think I see any questions. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being with me online. Make sure to invite a friend and be sure to tell them that our podcast will be coming back in about 2 weeks. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. If you are in the Metroplex, I encourage you to join me Saturday morning in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I encourage you to join me Saturday morning. I am hosting a women's conference, our Elect Ladies Conference. We're having a women's seminar at North Dallas Worship Center at 10 o'clock featuring Bishop Mary Butler. And then I will be delivering an encouraging, uplifting, and I like to think empowering word Sunday morning, 10 a.m. North Dallas Worship Center. After the Saturday seminar, the ladies are going to go out to lunch. And I'll admit that I'm probably going to beg out of lunch a little early because it is my auntie's homegoing. Okay, so she's in PA. Well, I mean, she's in heaven, but the family's in PA. Oh, this is bad. The family's in PA, so I'm going to see if they'll do a stream or something and be able to watch online if they're able to do that. If not, I'm probably going to just take some time and just honor her in my own way. So what I'm trying to say is don't be late to lunch because I might not be there. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you've enjoyed that. Y'all take care and be blessed.